Hi again from Educate. Today we're looking at Beat That Light. This poem came January 2010 and was recently on the January 2020 paper. So remember, when it comes to poetry, the language is going to be a little bit different, not so straightforward. Takes a little bit of, that stretch of your imagination. But it really comes down to analyzing the use of words. It's the choice of words from the poet that helps to create that imagery and to help to create also the meaning that is being directed to you. So let us look at the poem. This poem is quite interesting because there are so many words that we don't use in our day-to-day conversations, and they have actually highlighted two words and they have given you the meanings, and that should help to put two and two together. So Beat That Light, it's good to scan. It's also good to look at the questions so that we can have an idea of some of the information that is contained in the poem. But based on the footnote, the epitaph being mentioned is a short piece of writing or a poem about a dead person. As I scan, I can also see obituaries, which is almost the same thing. Klaxon is a type of loud horn formerly used on motor vehicles. So we have horns now, regular horns, but back in the day, they used klaxon as their horn. Okay. In terms of the question, we see that the poet feels that the horses are laughing, and this is a feeling because I don't think horses actually laugh. We're gonna figure out why he thinks horses are laughing. There's a mention of the things in line 4 of the poem. We need to figure out what these things are. Okay. Driver's destiny. There's something about the destiny of the drivers in the poem. So we know our poem contains information about horses, somewhat about the destiny of drivers. We need to know about these things being mentioned. Okay, we're also seeing that there are fatalities. So maybe it's in relation to driving and accidents. Beat that light, we need to know what that means. Okay, the poet is actually recommending something to drivers. There's a particular tone the poet has, and we need to know what he's referring to in line 19. I suggest pausing the video, reading this poem slowly, and see if it can teach you something, and bearing in mind the questions that we've seen already. I also want to highlight a few other words that you may not see in our day-to-day communication. So chaffing is also another word for teasing. Abode, home. Derision is to make mockery or to ridicule. We talked about obituary, same as epitaph. It's a little thing about that you write about somebody who has died. Whinnying is also the same as neighing, but it's a more gentle form of neighing. Anglo-Saxon refers to Germanic history. And we talked about the klaxon, which is like a horn, but it's horn on the older vehicles. Okay, let's think about the poem. What did you learn as you read the poem? Well, so far, I see that the poet thinks horses must be laughing. He feels that horses are laughing. But why? And he described to an extent how he thinks the horses feel. I mean, they're teasing, they're watching from, where they live. But why? And based on the first stanza, it's in relation to the things that drove them off the road. And these things are these vehicles. And why? It's because we're seeing so many things related to the vehicles. We're looking at vehicles breaking down, blowouts from the tires, collisions, accidents. And so they're watching from the side, all of these things. And as a matter of fact, at the end of the first stanza, obituaries, so they're actually seeing that these drivers are dying because of these things, these vehicles. In the second stanza, we're seeing that by the time Monday comes, the obituaries are out, right? The funerals are being kept as well. And at the funerals, we're hearing, the sad songs, probably the caskets, yeah, where the ushering out of the unlucky drivers. Of course, maybe that would suggest the dead bodies. But it still does not convince who's alive, the survivors, those who are alive. These funerals, these obituaries, and these people who are dead are the motorists, the drivers. But that doesn't make a difference to the survivors. Because what? Towards the end of the poem, he says, here's a curve and here's a truck. Take a chance and trust the luck. The next one's practically standing still. Curve, that's on the road. Trucks usually drive slowly, yeah? And so he's saying that the motorists who are still alive, they still don't care. They're still going to want to overtake that truck because they're moving so slow. They're practically standing still doesn't mean it's standing still. It's probably moving really slowly. And so take the chance, man. Go around. Try your luck. So let's try and answer these questions. "21. Why does the poet feel the horses are laughing?" Remember, this is something he only feels. And so the answer is because they were replaced with something which causes harm. Yes. 22. What are the things? And we talked about that. It would definitely be the vehicles. Which of the following words suggests the driver's destiny? In other words, what is destined to happen to the drivers? Which word? C, the obituaries. Yes. It's most likely that these drivers are going to just die out because they're not driving safely at all. 24. According to the poet, what days seem to be most prone to fatalities? And this was a tough one. But we do know from the poem, C and D would be out. But we do know that A, Mondays were referred to as the days when the obituaries come out and the days when the funerals were held. B would be the logical answer because it did say of drivers various and Sunday. But Monday was when the information or the funerals happened or came out. Which of the following means nearly the same as B? That light, when we talk about light, knowing what the poem is about, that light would more than likely refer to a street light. So if you're gonna beat that light, when it's green and then amber and it's supposed to go to right and you wanna beat that light, you're gonna be driving faster. What is the poet recommending? And the poet is saying so many things. But what would we say his recommendation is? And I mean, he mentioned, one of the things he mentioned was that these drivers are dying. So what do you think his recommendation would be? That the drivers drive carefully. What would be his tone in lines 17 and 18? And this is where he talks about the curve and there's a truck. Try your luck. What would be his tone? And his tone would be sarcastic. Why would his tone be sarcastic? He's being sarcastic because he doesn't really mean that's what he wants the drivers to do. In other words, just like the horses, he's still trying to mock the way that these drivers actually behave on the road. So he doesn't want you to do it. 28 was the poet referring to in line 19. And that's when he mentioned that you know, try your luck because the next one's practically standing still. And yes, he would be referring to overtaking. All right, so that's it for the analysis of Beat That Light from AID-ucate. Take care.